Okay, cool. So this is perfect, Jeremy. I have a brief amount of information about you. So it's like the audience. I'm a true audience member too now. Welcome to the Recovering Loudly podcast, man, where we're possessed to slay the day, and overcome our challenges and addictions. It's like recovering from anything really that sort of inhibits us from conquering our dreams or goals, right? And once we kind of grapple with that, then we can sort of become possessed with our ambitions and dreams. But like obviously recovery is huge, which is I'm a recovering addict myself, and you are as well. So I've come to what I understand is you're 1 year. So no, you're 1 year, right?
Yeah, I just had my 1 year, January 17th.
And
Congratulations, it's awesome,
congrats
dude.
on that.
Thank you. Never thought I'd get here, so
Yeah, like just tell us who you are and what your story, like what's up, like yeah, who you are and where you come from. Because I do know another thing. One of your DOC is meth,
crystal
and
meth and fentanyl. Yeah,
I used to love crystal meth. I used to do it
yeah,
so much.
yeah. And I like the name of your podcast. I say that a lot. I'll recover loudly so others don't die quietly. I like that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
really cool.
and that's what
Yeah,
I've
and I just
seen.
saw. It's funny. I saw that meme on Facebook like 2 days ago, and I scooped it because we recover loudly for those who it was said a little differently, but it seems to be kind of a common one, which is
Yeah,
great. We recover loudly for those who suffer in silence.
yeah.
Yeah, and
That's a good one
I've
too.
seen your post, and basically, so you're an author. You wrote a book called "Finding My Lost Life: The Fall of Addiction and Rise to
Right.
Recovery." And so I
Yes.
kind of seen a couple posts online regarding your book, and then when I saw you, posting a message like that, I'm like, well, shit. And also with the year recovery, I'm like, well, let's have you on. So you're officially, I guess, our first guest of 2025, and I think this is kind of a great way to bring in the year. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So
Absolutely.
I mean, like, first off, right? So you wrote this book, I mean, about your whole experiences and everything, but what was the inspiration, I guess,
I
to
actually started writing the book from behind bars. I was arrested for the final time January 16th, 2024, and then was released in May 2024. So I was in there for 5.5 months. And I spent 7 years in active addiction. It was progressive. I did have a whole bunch of things, a partner and a place and joint bank accounts, work full time. Nobody did drugs. I went to AA and supported, thinking that the DOC was just alcohol and DOC being drug of choice, and then relapsed on crystal meth, which I didn't have any idea that that was even a factor. And after that, things really went downhill. My whole life unraveled. The inspiration behind it was I always would say when awful, horrific things would happen that I talk about in my book, if I ever get out of this thing alive, I'm going to write about it someday. And so that was and as well as the same thing that you guys are saying, hopefully my goal and my mission is if other people can read my book and it resonates with them, or something in my writing helps them with their journey, or just a cautionary tale, or just the many lessons I wish I would have known to be prepared while, like, for a lot of people, they're stuck in the cycle that I was in, or they're just downtown right now and they just have no idea what they're getting themselves into. I'm hoping that my book is a front row seat to what can happen and what the dark side of the world is like, and also how to get out.
yeah, because I mean, well, like you said, there 7 years on the downtown east side, like that's a significant amount of time. And obviously, I mean, that a lot of stories, a lot of experiences, ups and downs, right? So
Yeah.
Sorry, what's the name of your book so people can find it? I know what it is, but I want you to say it.
Sure, it's Finding My Lost Life, The Fall to Addiction and Rise to Recovery. I also have a website, www.jeremycross.ca. There's direct book links on there as well. You can book directly with me. I'm now a certified peer support worker, so I have clients, I work with other addicts and families, and there's a contact me section, so you can ask me anything anytime. It's on Amazon is the main place. I just did a book signing at Chapters Indigo last weekend. So
Really?
it's on their website, yeah. And then Out TV came and recorded the whole segment, so it'll be broadcasting on their series.
Oh, that's
That's
so cool. How many did a bunch of people come out to your book signing?
Yeah, it was really cool. And like they brought cameras and lights and stuff, and I had a table, and there was probably 70 people just like watching the interview. They did the interview, they interviewed me right in front of everybody. I was standing up.
That's crazy. Good for you. Then like you have you always been an author? Like have you written other books as well, or is just this your first book?
This is the first book. Yeah, I'm tossing the idea. I'm open to a second one. I mean, I took English literature in grade 12 and creative writing. I've always loved writing. I'm very good at articulating how I feel and describing the setting and what's going on around me. And obviously, it resonated with a lot of people. So I'm open to another book, but this is the first one based on I'm good at writing what I know. And so, being that it was my story chronologically from start to finish, I could write about it really well.
and
That's
so
cool.
like you mentioned, like I mean, your book probably goes into some dark places, like
Mhm.
what's a little bit, a little bit of what somebody can expect, from the bit of
So it's,
experiences.
yeah, they can expect, like I said, I got into the first relationship based on where our relationship was and the circumstances of our relationship. When he relapsed, I would have done anything. He wanted an open relationship, which was detrimental for me, my self-worth, and all that. So I would have done anything at that time to get his attention or anything. So I did it with him. So they can, and as soon as that came into my life, he wasn't a functioning addict, so he lost his contracting job. Then I lost my job, and he said, "Hey, I've done escorting in the past. Let's get into the sex trade." So we started escorting. You can expect I talk about that. The clients, I mean, I got sexually assaulted due to the profession that I was doing. I was kidnapped and held at gunpoint. The second person I got involved with was an infamous fraudster in the downtown east side and stole my identity for a year and a half, frauded me, compromised my bank accounts, attacked my bureau, stole my $35,000 car. Um, yeah, and one of my clients happened to be a billionaire that bought an 8 and a 10-year-old, which was an experience all on its own. So there's a lot of tough topics in there, a lot of ground that I cover.
Yeah,
Well,
and
that's you correctly bought a billionaire, bought an 8 and a 10-year-old.
Yeah, he was a client of mine, and I had a gang approach me. They tried to book with me, and I said I couldn't talk. It was confidential. I couldn't talk about other clients. And then they asked, "Well, does he ever come with other people?" And I said, "What do you mean?" They're like, "Well, does he ever bring children with you?" And I was like, no." And then luckily I had a monitoring alarm system with cameras in my place, so I was able to show him leaving and exiting the front door alone and stuff. And then they asked me to accept an out call. And so when I would get called to this client's house, I would get like the keypad code to get into like his mansion. And then they followed me. And I don't know, after that, I was dispatched.
Crazy.
wild.
So
Yeah.
dark times. It's
Yeah.
funny how all our stories are relative to us. Like, I mean, my like addiction story, I hear a lot of people's addiction stories, and mine isn't so severe. Yet it was super fucking detrimental, and I still struggle and with issues and things to this day. Like, but I hear stories like that. I heard one recently of of a buddy of mine who like his best friend died in the front seat of the car because they got hit head on by RCMP. That's a whole other story. But I heard that and I was like, whoa. And then I'm hearing this, and it just always
Yeah.
blows my mind, like what people like just what people have gone through. And I work with some people from the downtown east side And yeah, it's mind-boggling. Like,
Yeah, there's lots of death, crime, corruption. There was, I don't know if you guys saw that thing in the Vancouver ports. It was all over social media about the sea cans, what somebody found in the sea cans there. And I wrote about what I saw in the sea cans 2 years ago. Me and my buddy were looking for a car. There was this big thing going on in Alberta, a big ring of auto theft that I happen to know the guys that were doing it. And somebody ripped him off. So we were trying to find the stolen vehicle that was his. And it was apparently in one of the sea cans in the port. So we were opening some of them. And we opened one. And we opened it. And it was like this wave of death. There was four young girls that were shackled to each corner of the sea can, dead, with little single beds and needles all over the ground. And we both threw up the minute we opened it, and we ran out of there. It was traumatizing.
what?
Yeah.
Wow. This,
And so it was just ironic because people are like, "Oh no, it's a conspiracy," and then my friend was like, "No, no, no, no. Actually, there was just a true story memoir that was just published in November, about obviously my story about what I found 2 years ago before this even blew up on social media. This whole opening the sea cans and stuff like that, because I guess a woman happened to see somebody dead in like just, and then the police hushed it up and nobody talked about it and they didn't want to interview anybody and." So this kind of came at the right time.
sorry, I apologize. You were why? Sorry, why were you on this? Why were you on? Why did you have access to the sea can? Like,
We were just trying to find, like, he knew people, like, that's how they were getting these stolen vehicles to a different place, I guess. So when we
because
went
usually
in,
you have to work down there, right? Like, you have to work down there to be able to get access to these sea cans.
yeah,
Like,
he knew, like,
longshoremen.
yeah, he was connected, like, he knew people. It was an
Okay,
operation. Yeah.
okay. And that was something you guys that okay. So so that happens probably more often than not.
Yeah, lots of this stuff is going on. I mean, you talk about like lots of people that I would come, like I was there for 7 years, but a lot of people would come through the city and a lot of people I'd kind of meet and they'd go missing or disappear. And like there's just a lot of shady stuff going on in Vancouver that nobody knows about, which is kind of like why also I wanted to just spread awareness and understanding for so people know like what's actually going on down there.
Right. No.
Yeah, it's the cycle of addiction is like I'm working with an individual right now. Like I'm a community support worker, outreach worker. I'd like to become an addictions counselor and a recovery coach and these things. So, but in the meantime, we've started a podcast. I've started the brand and everything to sort of to do our own thing, get it going. But I am a community support worker. I do work with people with um, developmental disabilities and addiction. And one of my clients, he he's from the downtown east side, and just when I speak to him, it's I've never been on the downtown east side, but when I speak to him, I can tell he's two steps away, two good decisions away from changing his whole life. Yet the mental health challenges that he deals with and the addiction to meth is, it's just it almost seems they look at it like it's insurmountable. And I mean, there was a point in my life with that where you look at some people that they've lost their kids, they've lost their jobs, they've lost their license, they've lost so many different things, and then it's so overwhelming to like, I'm never getting back. So I feel like the cycle, like because you'd mentioned just well, I was about to mention like the cycle of addiction just keeps bringing us back and you know what I mean? It just seems so insurmountable, especially on the downtown east side because
Yeah,
there's so
it's
much
like a
pain and trauma.
Yeah, it's like a vortex down there, like getting out of there. Even people on the streets, we would make a joke, like you go in, you get sucked into Vancouver. It's like a dark hole that it's hard to get out of. Plus, they don't make, like, especially here in BC, they don't make recovery and detox that accessible given the demographic, like to get into the government assisted, like if I was on disability and I knew everyone else kind of that was on disability, and so for us down here, like we don't have, if we say we have an intervention and we get a client, like I've had clients that are like, they get the family there, they decide they want to get help. They're like, yeah, no, I'm in, I'm game for this. There's no door for them to walk into unless you have like $20,000 for private detox, and you can't go straight into a recovery house without detox. And so then they're going to withdraw and they're going to disappear again. So the system is just not set up for success.
We can say it's fucking broken. It's okay to
Totally
say that.
broken.
It's
Yeah, okay.
fucking broken and it's fucking despicable, man.
Yeah.
Even in my industry, the red tape and the way that like things are handled with the mental health system, I'm just like, I'm the one here without a grade 12 education that came from fucking construction. And you guys can't, and you're the ones with all the fancy education, you can't get your shit together. Like baffling to me. And I've
Yeah.
asked my boss, I'm like, hey, is this like normal? And he just goes, that's why we love you, Garrett, because you put the passion, right? And so yeah, it's broken. And I also work for Purpose Society. Shout out to Purpose. I work in harm reduction 4 times a month, roughly. And I'm like, why can't we just? And some of the people I hang out with, there's just a lot of people out there that they're like, why can't these people just get sober? Like, get them some help, get them some help. So I talked to my boss at Purpose. I'm like, what's up with that? Like, why can't they just get treatment and detox? And that's the thing. You're right. It's just not readily available. Like, it's really that
100%.
simple, which
Yeah,
is
they were like,
baffling to.
even when I was like, maybe year five, and I was like, oh my, like I was overdosing, I was getting into trouble, I was in and out of jail. I was like, man, I need to fucking change this shit big time. And they were like, okay, no worries, honey, we're gonna put your name on a detox bed. And then I was like, okay, well, how long is the wait? And she's like, we're looking at a month out, and you need to call every day to show that you're
Yeah.
serious about it. I'm like, I don't have a phone, I'm homeless. And they're like, well, and I'm like, can my mom do it for me? And they're like, no, 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 you have to call. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
Out of
And I had
all the
this.
money spent on harm reduction and what the government has put in, how do we not have doors just to go into?
So here's an interesting topic. So I love that you just said that because I'm an advocate for forced treatment. Yep, I said it, everybody. I said it. I think there should be forced treatment to a degree. And that was the thing. My client that I was referring to earlier, yes, that was one of the things. He had to call. And I'm like, this guy can't call every day. Like, what? And I guess in to be the devil's advocate in that situation, it is because people get the bed, they get the treatment, and then they fuck off, right? So there's a part there where I kind of understand they want to make sure someone's really gonna stay.
Hmm.
But I do believe that there's a like there just like some people may need forced treatment. And how do you feel about that? Like that me saying that?
Honestly, if it wasn't for forced sobriety in jail, I wouldn't have gotten sober. Jail
Okay.
was and I agree, as you said, you work in the mental health. I have another client who has her RN, it's an RN, and she said it's so frustrating because they group addicts with mental health. However, you can red card a mental health person if they're a danger to themselves, so you can actually hold them against their will. But yet, an addict, they clump them in the same category, but they don't get treated the same. The addict has free range to do whatever they want, and they don't look at the fact that the addict doesn't care if they live or die as they pump themselves with lethal drugs. And so that, clumping them in with the medical side, that doesn't really work. And then you clump them with the law or judicial side, that doesn't work. Like there's no, like the addiction needs its own like lane, in my opinion. They're just, nobody wants to take responsibility for it up top, and nobody wants to pay for it. So we're just working with the bad situation with our system.
Yeah. And the harm reduction thing, like I joined harm reduction. Someone gave me the gig. Actually, someone offered me the gig. And I was like, I'll do it because, okay, like I didn't quite understand what harm reduction was. I would like to have it on my resume so I can work in a treatment center or for experience. But the more that I work, the more I'm learning. And what I'm learning. And one of the first things I learned was we're just dumping a bucket of water on a forest fire. You're taking a
100%.
bucket of water and you're like, okay, that bush, get it. Like, there's a
Yeah.
bush, it's fine. But the fucking fire goes up the mountain still. Like,
Yeah, and there's so much money getting paid into this department, like you said, and it's not even, it's never, the government are the way, like I've done research in this, and it's like our mindset here is addiction will never go and never be abolished. And the hope, there's no hope in our system here, whereas Alberta, like Danielle Smith, runs the kind of their, like, at least in their government, they have like inspiration, recovery, hope, like there's a door for people to go in. Like our government doesn't have that here. Like it's more, I also, like, being that I was on the street, I had clients that were doctors, politicians, lawyers, people that were high up, and They, I was down on the east side during COVID, and I was there when they legalized or decriminalized fentanyl. I used to get arrested with all personal belongings, and the VPD would keep my personal belongings, like my ID, but I'd get my fentanyl and my crystal meth released back to me with it being color coded and whatever it's made out of. They would write on the bag, and I'd get released back with my drugs. And so
ID.
and then I met some clients that kind of were involved in the government, and I was like, how are you guys it's like it's more illegal to smoke a cigarette in front of a business than it is to smoke fentanyl. Like, how did this happen? And he's like, well, we like the people high up, they need addicts. Like the illegal drug trade, they need people. I'm like, are you saying that it's almost they've done this on purpose? Like they're not making it like they need the addicts, like, you know what I mean? Like, is this like all set up that way? Like, I feel like the people in power that are making the decisions, they have a stake in the game. So they want to keep the drugs flowing, and they need the addicts, in my opinion, from what I've heard.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a tricky one for sure. But still, the symptoms are far worse now. I mean, it's spilling out into like it's. I mean, look, right, Jay, like Maple Ridge
Yeah.
is just insane now.
Yeah, whatever the plan was, it was a failed plan. Like, and then it's like the open drug use, and yeah, like you said, it being, like, yeah, just people feeling like you're more of a criminal smoking a cigarette on a sidewalk than doing hard drugs. And that's a very strange approach. How's that going to help anything? Uh,
Right.
besides,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think that they should get more like, and now that I got certified in peer working and I've worked within this, I
How
don't
did you get
understand.
certified in that? Sorry to interrupt you.
No worries. So when I got out of jail, I mean, when I was in jail this time, I said to the doctor who was giving me methadone and stuff, I said, listen, when I get out of here in May, I don't want you to keep upping my dosage to match my street level. I want it to be at zero. So whatever you have to do. So he like, because that whole is a whole nother topic. Like they should implement a way better system, because when you get the addict in jail, that is your first front to front forced interaction that you can actually put like a recovery plan, or you know what I mean? Like have a better system instead of just allowing them to get as much methadone as they want. Like you can go up by 10 mils every month. Like the inmates in jail are just higher than a kite. And then when they get released, their usage is still so high. It's not mandatory to microdose. Luckily, I did. So I had a community transition team leader and I had a peer support worker when I got out of jail, and they came and checked on me every week for the first 90 days. And I said to my peer worker that I had, I said, listen, like, I want to be you. So what do you have? And he said, oh, I'll show you. You can go to Peer Connect and get certified. I had to do like a couple month course online, and then I did a Towards the Heart peer certificate course online. And now I'm just like applying for different jobs. I would like to be, I know a buddy of mine is Andy Bigotti. He's a big interventionalist, more in the private sector. He's super intelligent. I think like I want to do that. I want to kind of do what you're doing too. Like I would maybe get into harm reduction, and I feel like they should put more peer workers or like people on the ground with the addicts. And because like even when I was an addict in those and I used to go to these places, there was never like support teams there that like I pretty much everybody that was getting high or shooting up in the tent there with the harm reduction, none of us wanted to be there. Like you don't love being an addict. Like if there would have been a peer support or somebody there that could say like, listen, I was here a year ago shooting up, I got a way out. Like if you're interested, let me show you some different tools or some resources. Like I feel like they should
Yes.
put that more there.
Yeah, I love what you said because that circles back to the forced treatment thing. And everyone's like, because I've heard some people be like, "Man, the forced treatment wouldn't work. It'll just make people mad." And I'm like, so two things quick. Yes, with the when I'm delivering harm reduction supplies, it's yeah, I'm like, why aren't we handing out pamphlets or something? Because these people are like sitting there like, I'm just literally a van that drives up with all they just shop. It's a shopping spree. They're like, I'll take pipes, I'll take needles, I'll take bands, I'll take swipes. You got any food? You got any dog food? Just giving all this stuff to them. And I'm like, what about like the hope for like recovery or some sort of something to like,
Yeah,
but that circles back to there's no like if the person said right now I'm like, okay, I'm ready to get sober, can I get in your van? Where the hell do I
yeah,
take where do I take them,
exactly.
right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, you're right.
going back to the forced treatment thing, my dream would be to have a recovery ranch that's in Maple Ridge, we'll say, just whatever, far enough away that there's no bus system, right? So if you leave, you're gonna have to fucking hike it out, brother.
Yeah,
Okay, and I'm telling you, there's bears and there's all kinds of shit around there. So it's a ranch where you're gonna get. Now here's where the money, like take the harm reduction, like take the money out of maybe harm reduction. I'm sure there's some places we can squeeze money out of. Come on, we got politicians robbing us blind. But
yeah.
you build a recovery ranch that's like where essentially you'd have like Gabor Mate, Johan Hari, some of the greatest, the best counselors, just whatever, just like counselors and people that are healing, even psychedelic integration therapies, medications, like just serious fucking counseling for people,
Trauma therapy. Yeah.
everything. So we strip you of all of this bad stuff and bring you back to who you are. So you're not going to want to leave. Then we integrate you in. You're out and about doing chores, raising chickens, doing the eggs. Like it's a ranch. Like there's
Yeah.
work to be done. So we're getting you back into working. I would have like a system where you could actually apply to be a position. There'd be full-time staff and then a recycled staff, and then job options after. I mean, this is obviously a dream, but
Actually, I
this
think there is one out here in Langley. My mom was telling me about this farm you can go work on. Apparently, that was an option. And to touch on that, that's first of all a great idea. Second of all, you could like the government is paying. Like I'm friends with the owner of Back on Track Recovery. I'm connected with a couple of the owners. The thing is, these people are calling. I'm not saying Back on Track, but just there's other recovery houses too that the government is paying per head per diem a shitload of money. So these people, the owners of these like really it's just actually a rental contract. There's no conditions, there's no programs you have to do, but they're calling it a recovery house when really all they're responsible for is keeping them alive, fed, and a place to sleep. They don't even have to integrate AA, NA, therapy, counseling, and yet they're making a fortune off the government.
what is it? Sorry, what is this place?
Well, these are just recovery houses. Like all those ones on the list, like they say they're recovery houses, but then I've gone to a couple of them. I'm like, what do you guys offer for programs? And they're like, well, there's one thing on like Mondays for an hour and then Fridays for an hour. And I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do for the rest of the week? Like, so we're just going to white knuckle sobriety then. We're not going to do any therapy, any healing, but we're off substances. Therefore, it's recovery. Bullshit. Recovery is two-pronged. Getting off substances is one. Two is actually dealing with why you did drugs, what
Yeah,
happened while you were on drugs.
yeah,
Like, you're a
trauma
broken
and
person.
ADHD. Yeah, trauma and
100%.
ADHD. Like
Yeah.
I think so many addicts. That's actually why I couldn't handle the like AA rooms sometimes because like it was just a lot of. And listen, I went to AA. I think it's a good place to go when you are crawling out of the depths of fucking addiction, like I was at one time. Like those rooms are good, but a lot of untreated ADHD, a lot of untreated trauma, and people are just
Oh,
talking
100%.
over each other. It's
Yeah,
crazy,
I have
right?
a client that says, "Well, what if because I said, listen, like I can be your peer support worker, but like if we're gonna get in, I can go, like I can do the steps with you, he's like, well, what if I start going to AA and NA? I'm like, he's like, well, that's counseling. I'm like, no, 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 no. AA and NA rooms is not counseling. It's a support network, but there
Support.
is no counseling. There's no professionals. Don't mistake that for you getting like counsel or healing. You need a whole different thing. And he's like, oh, okay, well, that doesn't, I don't know why they say that if I go to A and NA, I'll be fine. I'm like,
Well, you will
well,
if you follow if you follow what that blue book says to a fucking T, you will probably stay sober. But you're also locked in that, and this is controversial, and people can come at me. I don't care, but
well, and I
you need.
agree. And actually, the big book I've read it, and I even teach it. If you don't have a sponsor or somebody who could teach you it, if for the first person that's just opening the book, it doesn't even like describe. My mom was even like, you should write a second book about how to even read the big book. Like you read the steps, and like step 4, it doesn't say you write a diagram of who's hurt you, what they did, how that affected you. Like that's not in the steps. Like you would have to have a coach to be like, listen, this like these are the steps, but this is how you do the steps. Because
And
there's a lot of
everybody's got their own version of how to do them. I mean, it was
totally. But if
Had
you
a
were just to
few.
read out, like, oh, do a moral inventory of who you've wronged, like that doesn't say, okay, no, you need to write a list of all of the people that have harmed you and you've harmed, what happened, how that affected you personally. Like, you know what I mean? Like mine was like 50 pages. If you,
But I had 188 resentments my first round at steps, or
yeah.
of the 12 steps. I was like, whoa. And then when they're like, the guy that kind of did it was a bit whacked. Like, shout out to him. He was really good, but his roommate. Here's the thing: I was doing the steps at his house. The facilitator was good, but then his roommate came out of the darkness, and he's got no teeth. He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "You here for the steps? You pray to God today for your sobriety."
Oh
Ah. I'm just
God.
like, Jesus Christ! They're like, "So you want what we have?" And I'm like, "What, a beer belly and a fucking chain smoking fuck? No, what the?"
No, yeah, I'm
Anyway,
good.
the other guy like did the steps with me pretty good, and he didn't tell me why I was writing out 188 resentments. But then when he told me, now take your part in them, I was like, then I did have a profound experience. I was like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
like I did cheat on that. Yeah, I did. Whoa, like okay, but I think everybody should do a set of steps personally, and everyone, because everyone's technically addicted to something, whether it's Netflix or sex or their self. Fuck, we need a AA room for cell phone addiction, man. But
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing. Yeah.
but yeah, like I think it does need to be facilitated properly, especially in this day and age when there's so much science now with addiction. Like I'm realizing right now because I've been in recovery since 2015. Okay, I don't clap yet because that's not lineal time. I probably had about in that time. It's almost 10 years now. In that time, I probably had about 5 or 6 years of complete. I don't really know, about 5, 6 years of complete straight sobriety, but all mixed up. So a lot of relapses, a lot of. But what I've gradually done over time, because I don't work in construction anymore. 2 years ago, I got a job in this mental health industry, and I've never been happier. So now I have purpose. Then I've kind of figured out what my trauma and childhood developmental trauma is. Sad story is I'm like, yes, I've conquered my addiction somewhat. Now I understand what childhood trauma and all that kind of is and how it affects me. And then it was like God was like, now kaboof, here's your adult ADHD. Have fun, So that I've been sort of dealing with that for the last year. But and then I've started experimenting with kratom because I'm just constantly because and when I sip on alcohol, if I do have a relapse with it, I don't go out and lose my license. I don't go out and bang chicks. I don't go out and fuck my life off too much. I just start retreating, and usually alcohol just numbs my brain enough that I can chill and think a little
Mm.
clearer. But then, of course, I got to finish the bottle, and I got to get more. So I could put the brakes on way faster, but I don't like alcohol. I don't like it. Just don't. So I started sort of experimenting with this substance called kratom, and then what I realized, and that's just too addictive too, because
I've never heard of kratom.
it's just a fucking totally natural supplement, a green powder, a green plant from Indonesia, and it's some people use it to cure ADHD. Normally, it's used for heroin addicts. They use that to get people off like opioids. It's like Mother
Oh,
Nature's
okay.
opium, right? And if you take a little bit of it, little scoop in water, and just drink it, it'll give you lots of energy and you'll get things done. If you take too much, it almost acts as like over the top painkiller.
Hmm.
But it only lasts about 2 hours. It is really addictive. And I noticed, okay, my point to all this is even just through taking that, I started to realize, like, because if I was on kratom, I wouldn't drink. I mean, I realized that I'm neurodivergent and I'm ADHD, so that means I'm dopamine deficient.
Hmm.
It circles back to all of this stuff. Once people put down the booze, the fentanyl, the meth, all of it, they're gonna realize they probably, well, most certainly have some sort of trauma. They probably have ADHD. They're neurodivergent. They have a dopamine deficiency. So, does what I'm saying make sense? Like,
100%. Yeah,
so
no,
yeah.
absolutely.
So I had to put away the kratom. I had to put away. I'm just really, really, really coming to the terms more recently that, like, God damn it, I just can't do anything that makes me want to fucking have fun. It's got to be cold plunging, fitness, all the boring shit, but makes me feel. But that dopamine is far more sustainable. you know?
100%. Yeah, no, you gotta like what people don't realize is yeah, no, your all your receptors, your dopamine, like your biochemistry, your body's fucking fried, and has to regenerate, and that takes
Oh,
time.
a long time.
Yeah, like time.
So what was your childhood like, bro? Your
My
parents?
childhood was, I mean, I had a good childhood. I played hockey. My parents divorced really young, which I didn't realize until even writing my book, how I like the subconscious trauma from that. Like one of my earliest childhood memories is watching my dad drive away from in like being upstairs after he dropped us off and watching him drive away in his Mustang out of the cul-de-sac. And I was like probably six, bawling, not understanding why he was leaving. And
Oh,
so bad so that my mom actually called him and said, "You got to come back. Like Jer's having a tantrum." So they divorced. I was like 6 months. Then my mom met somebody, remarried, and then they had two more kids. And as soon as I got, he was really like my stepdad was a bully and became abusive. Our relationship changed in my teens, and I hid it from my mom. I suppressed everything. Like we lived on a farm, ironically, and he's just not a nice guy. Like we was a bully. And then I also got bullied at school, like on and off, like grade 8, 9 was fine. Then I went to Langley Secondary School from Poppy, and then HD Stafford combined with LSS, and then I got so badly bullied in grade 10, so bad so that I went back to Poppy. But like in that moment, like in that time, I wasn't safe anywhere. I tried to commit suicide once. I also played hockey and had girlfriends, but then had this weird secret love affair with someone on my hockey team that was private and never came out. Like I was battling my sexuality. I'm like, I don't understand. I love my girlfriend, but then also I'm feeling this too, and I had no one to talk to about it. So that was really rough.
wasn't widely accepted back then. I'm assuming that would be like how old are you?
Yeah, 31.
Just- Yeah, so even back then, being gay
Yeah.
was still
Yeah, no, I didn't want anyone to know
Yet,
for
so
sure.
yeah.
I hated at my, like what was going on at school. I had no idea what was going on internally. So I think this is when I mastered the suppression tactic. My mom didn't know. I kept it very secret what my stepdad was doing until they started having marital issues. And then I told her, and then all hell broke loose because, of course, that was unacceptable to her, him treating me badly, which then led to their divorce.
wow. And then what? So and then when did you start? Like, what? How did your drug use start?
Yeah, like
I
I
mean,
definitely
I
like
would.
Do you have a
Mhm.
question, Jay? Sorry.
yeah, well, like I definitely, like yeah, getting to the drug use, something that I'm curious about is from the first time trying meth, like the whole slippery slope of it to finding
Fucking
yourself,
right. Yeah,
on
I
meth.
experimented with like club drugs like cocaine, MDMA. Me and my best friends, we would drive from Langley to Vancouver, but we all had jobs. I wasn't an addict yet. When I moved downtown to 24 for that relationship, I've always wanted to move into the city. I was going to A as a support, like I said. Then he relapsed on that. Wanted an open relationship after he proposed to me, which was definitely not okay with me. I'm very monogamous. I didn't even share my Xbox as a kid, so sharing who I'm yeah, sharing who I'm intimate with was not working for me. But I stayed because I didn't want to lose my life there. So I felt like I was not being true to myself, and at that time I would have done anything for his attention. So I did it with him, and then yeah, we started escorting after we lost jobs. Then fuck, we got evicted because we couldn't pay for that rent there. We moved. My mom helped us move into the second place downtown, and then like I said, he was not a functioning addict. He literally could not function. Like he would do crystal meth and inject it and just not move, like just stare at the computer for days. And he started to deteriorate so bad so that our clients, we had a pact. I'm like, listen, I'm against selling my body for money, but if we're going to do this, it's a duo thing. So we go in together. But then the clients started to not be attracted to him, so they didn't want to book with him. So then I was basically going, not basically, I was going by myself, and he was collecting the money, which didn't work for me in time either. So then we broke up. He stole our client list that like I organized everything. I moved into a new place of my own, did the sex trade myself, saved like $20,000 in my safe. That whole gang pedophile client was at that time in there. Then I had a second guy come into my life, and he was an infamous fraudster. He was on Canada's Top Most Wanted for fraud. I had no idea. Like in my book, I talk about like I was so uneducated. I didn't know what gaslighting was, manipulation. I didn't know people could use your heart as a weapon. I was completely unequipped for the dark side of people, or what I didn't even know what people were
Right.
capable of. It just was never in my upbringing. I wasn't taught it because we weren't around it, deception or fraud or crime. So he had perfectly mastercraftedly put me in his web. He isolated me. He was his DOC was fentanyl, and I hated when he would do fentanyl because he became a fucking monster. He'd steal the keys to my car, my wallet, and he'd disappear for days, and I didn't understand what was going on. And then finally, he wanted me to start spending like a couple $1,000s were missing from my safe here and there. And I remember calling my mom and being like, "Fuck, like there's money missing," and she would be like, "Son, who's the only one that would have access to your safe? It's obviously him." But I was in love and didn't want to believe it. So I said to him, "Listen, we're not spending any more money unless we're both benefiting." And that was kind of my way of saying, "I know it's fucking you, so stop." And then the next day he mixed fentanyl in our crystal meth shot, and I OD'd and woke up in the emergency room, and then I was hooked on fentanyl.
And so how much time, like from, I guess, through the crystal meth to like, the first time doing fentanyl there, like,
Probably like about 14 months.
geez, yeah, that's what I was sort of wondering, like in 14 months, that sort of,
Yeah, I was just doing
that's
because the clients I had wanted to do crystal meth. Like I was really good at injecting. I never missed, and I actually cared about them and stuff. Like they had wives and families, but they would come to my place, and it was all confidential. And a lot of them just actually wanted companionship or someone to talk to, which was blew my mind. And then yeah, once the second guy came in and fucking stole my identity and completely sold my wardrobe. He stole my car and hit a woman and fled the scene. And then I got a call from the VPD saying that my car was at the tow yard in Vancouver. So I went to the tow yard and they're like, "No, no, your car is gone." And I was like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "Well, the owner came and got it." I'm like, "I'm the only owner." And they gave me a business card and I called it and they said it was some auto loan shop. Apparently, I went in and got a $15,000 equity loan out on the equity of my vehicle, and I defaulted on the loan payments. So I apparently put my car as collateral. So I just lost my car, and I knew exactly what had happened. I knew that
right.
he had my identity and fucked me over. So I lost my car. And yeah, then he overdosed me on fentanyl. And then as soon as I could function on crystal meth. Like I had a really nice place. I had probably $150,000 worth of nice clothes and a wardrobe. Like I had a good system going on. And then as soon as fentanyl came into it, though, it was game over. I was a slave to it. I couldn't work. I couldn't escort. I couldn't. It just everything fell apart.
So that's it. That's like, it's that
That's
drastic of
interesting.
a difference between,
100%.
yeah.
Yeah, no, because you'll fucking sell anything for it. And then before you knew it, I couldn't pay for rent. And then I was on the streets and
That's
fuck
one of
that.
the things I was talking to my boss. I'd love to shout her out, but I'm not sure if that's cool with her from Purpose. But that was the thing. I guess the thing about fentanyl is it's so aggressive in the sense that back in the day, everyone on the downtown east side was doing heroin for the most part. So heroin lasts way longer. You can
Yeah.
kind of function on it,
Yeah.
right? And
And it's not lethal.
it's not as lethal as and
No.
whereas fentanyl, the fentanyl high is like what, 2 hours?
Yeah, you need it constantly. Yeah.
Yeah, like 2 hours. That's why, and you're just then you turn into a fiend. I am
Yeah.
assuming.
You're
I've
a
never done
slave.
fentanyl. I've never injected. I've smoked crack, cocaine, uh, methamphetamine, and then primarily like that was all in my 20s. Then it was alcohol and whatnot. But I just faded off of hard drugs. But I'm with you with the methamphetamine. Like I didn't. You can. I can see where you can function on that, but like
Especially given the industry that I was working in, crystal meth was a paramount part of that industry. I wouldn't have gotten booked as an escort because a lot of the clients wanted to do crystal meth, like these big high up
right,
people. But I
Right.
liked, like you said, with alcohol, fentanyl chilled me out, like my anxiety, my ADHD. That's why I never, you'd hear these stories like on the streets, I'd meet people and there'd be a new chem or whatever, a new dealer, and they would have the purple down, and it was dropping people like flies, and everyone on the street would go and look for that dealer because it was so lethal, which blew my mind. I'm like, I don't do it to die, and I'm not like, I don't have a
They
death
would look.
wish.
They would
They
look
would
for that
literally
stuff.
purposefully look for that drug, the most strongest one they can get their hands off on.
So they're playing Russian roulette.
They
100%.
want that death trip. Yeah, yeah, I've definitely heard those stories direct from people. Like, yeah.
Yeah,
This
it blew
is
my mind.
demonic. That just seems to me like when you see people hunched over like that and folded over like in yoga positions, you're just like, it it just seems demonic to me. It's just evil,
Well,
that
and then I
drug. Like,
imagine it's probably so much more brutal to get off of.
Oh, fuck, man. That's what keeps me sober now. The idea, I mean, you can't casually do fentanyl. I try to tell everybody that. Like, listen, you can't just casually go and do it. It's not that drug. But what keeps me sober is the thought of withdrawing again and having to fucking go through that couple week process of death is just not worth it. And then having to get back on the prescriptions, the Sublocade, the Suboxone, all that shit. Like, it's just, I
that's
can't
what
even.
kratom is. So kratom is it acts like an opiate. So that it's funny, man. I've quit methamphetamine. I've used methamphetamine to get off crack, coke. I've jumped around, used them all to get off each other. Alcohol is a son of a bitch. More because it's so available, and if you have a bad day, like you just get it. But kratom is very similar to opiates, right?
Hmm.
Getting off that, like when you go on, I did it off and on quite a bit for like about 6 months there. I was doing it, and then when I was like, okay, I gotta get off this shit, it was hard. I had the worst restless legs. I couldn't sleep. Really gray, just gray thoughts. Like it, that one was brutal. That one, just
Yeah.
oddly for like what I thought was a harmless little green powder. Nothing like fentanyl, but I kind of relate somewhat to what you're saying. Like just being like, I'm not going back because just Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it took me fucking like a year to even get to the point. Yeah, no, like I even said in my book, I can't even describe, put enough adjectives together to really paint the scene of what withdrawing was like. And the shitty thing is, so what they do to inmates is so you get the guy, like my street usage of drugs was up here, and then they get you into jail, and they're like, oh, well, we can only start you at like 30 mils of methadone, which is like here. So you're withdrawing, and they can only go up by 10 mils every week. So you're withdrawing this entire time,
Ugh.
and then you finally get up to 180 or 200 is the max, and then you plateau, and then usually you get released, which I'm like, well, that's fucking bullshit because my street usage is still the same. Like you haven't done anything for my actual usage. Why don't you guys put it a little bit higher and then have somebody microdose so that when they're out of jail when they're released, they don't need to run to a pharmacy to get a prescription or run back to the streets because they're fucking withdrawing again. I had to go through withdrawal twice just from street drugs climbing up and then a withdrawal all over again to go all the way back to zero. Like it was fucked.
Right.
Yeah, just not pleasant. And sorry, forgive me because I do have ADHD but why were you in jail? Did we discuss that? Why did you
No,
go?
not yet.
It's a good
I mean, like I
question.
said, yeah. I mean, like I said, the second person came into my life. He was an infamous fraudster. He was stealing my identity. He was fucking up my bureau, my bank accounts. He was ordering credit cards to my place and other people's names. And he would threaten the more I became aware of what was going on, I became more of a problem. He would threaten to go after my mom and dad's bureau. So it was really scary for me. When I told you that I lost the place and then he took my car and I was back on the street, he said to me, listen, if you get a car, we can be together. I can't be on the street, Jeremy, like, with the crime I'm doing. And I'm like, you fucker, you're the reason why I'm on the fucking street. But then he's like, so he gave me a driver's license and I still was such a noob at this time. Gave me a license that looked like me, told me to go to Brian Gestel BMW and get a car in someone else's name. So I went and successfully bought a $45,000 BMW in somebody else's name. And then when they gave me the keys to walk out, the fucking fraud squad, gang squad, task force, helicopters, dogs, all came running at me. And that was my very first arrest, was for fraud. He set me up. And then when I got into jail, that was my first ever jail or any sort of crime. It was the inmates in jail that started to tell me like what I was in. They're like, dude, you're his mark. I didn't even know what a mark was. Like,
I don't even know what a mark is. What's a mark?
so when you're the victim of of gaslighting. Like if somebody's gaslighting you and you're their victim, you're their mark. They're
So it's
someone
another
they
way of
fix.
saying bitch.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. It's what in the criminal world, that's what they say. You're somebody's mark, like, or somebody's John, like you're somebody that is in their scope, that they're going to bleed you for every resource or any value and use you. You are absolutely, it's just there for their uses. And then once you're not, like, don't you give them anything, you're gone. Like they don't give a
Yeah,
fuck about you.
because you were thrown
So,
into all that and you had no previous experience of that sort of
not a clue.
life. And yeah, and you're dealing with veterans of the street, right? So
Literally
yeah,
veterans. Yeah.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
had no idea about being set up, or yeah, I
And
had
then
no
it's
history with the Vancouver police, which fuck my hit now, like being in and out, that's so fucking corrupt. Like what the VPD did to me when I would get incarcerated and go into the city cells, I was like 98 pounds, and when the cameras and nobody was looking, they'd beat the shit out of me. The shit that they would do and abuse their power was shocking to me.
why would they do that?
They just because they like they have there's so many different groups, undercover groups downtown. Like I got followed around all the time, or you're under investigation. And this isn't crystal meth sketching. Like I've met people that actually like they got like I met people from the fraud squad. So they would investigate you. They'd follow you around. They would wait for you to go into a bank. They knew who you were, and they would wait for you to fuck up to arrest you or catch you in a warrant, or that's there's so many different things downtown. Like everyone's watching. They even say like nowadays 6 out of every 10 is some sort of law enforcement. Like 6 out of every 10 people, you like they're always being watched down there now.
6 out of every 10 people down on the downtown east side is some sort of cop.
Community watch, yeah, some sort of something that are all at like a task force. Like I said, I had gang squad, fraud squad, I had just the regular VPD. And so the thing is, fraud is super difficult to catch somebody in. So they knew who I was, or they know who the top prolific fraudsters are, but they get so frustrated because they can never fucking catch you because it's so hard. You can do fraud just from like, I don't even have to leave my house. I didn't have to leave my house to do fraud. I could open up bank accounts online. I could have credit cards sent to my house. Like you could do anything with fraud. And so they have your number basically, and they're waiting to get you. So when they actually catch you and get you, behind closed doors, they just kick the shit out of me.
Wow.
Whether it
That's
was
not very
despair.
nice. That's not
Yeah.
very policey.
No,
Beat up
no. I mean, it's
some
also not
fellas.
great to be a criminal, but yeah. Well, and the second time I went in, or another time got arrested. They were chasing me all through. I jumped into the back of this moving truck, and they were like, I was on my stomach, had my arms around my stomach. I couldn't get like move, and two of them were stepping on my back, and one of them was like, "Put your hands behind your back," and so they were purposefully making it, and one was strangling me. Like I'm like, I can't put my arms behind my back because you guys are all stepping on me. Like there was a woman, thank God, just like a citizen, that was like, I can see what you're doing to that young man, and took out her phone. And luckily then they put their weight off me so I could put my hands behind my back.
That's yeah. And again, it's just chaos. And forgive me because I'm sure they're sick of dealing with the fucking brutal chaos down there too. And then
100%.
they get it wrong. They get it wrong, obviously, right? And I mean, yeah, it's just like
But
what
if they had more like of a supportive, like, if you just make the criminal more angry and
oh, for sure.
resentful, and then you attack them or break one of their, like, you know what I mean? It's not going to make
Yeah.
me be like, oh my God, I want to make your
Yeah.
life easier and get clean.
And
Yeah,
catch
no,
and
I wanna
Like, you're going to be
release
like,
yeah, I wanna
fuck
do-
you. When I get out of here, I'm going to fucking do this 10 times harder. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, that's
no,
the mindset of a lot of people.
100%. And so what, like, what do you think? Damn, like, what do we do? Like, what's the solution? What are some, what can we do to clean up the downtown east side? Like, how do we just keep making podcasts and go and writing books and just try to be the lighthouse?
Well, I feel like we need, like, I would like to be, they need people in the ministry, or people that actually have power or abilities to make changes. I think they need to have lived experience. However, being in a high government position, of course, they want like a master's degree and a clean history, which doesn't work. That's why
Doesn't
peer,
sound good, yeah.
yeah, that's why peer support support is so valuable, they're realizing, over a counseling degree, because the peer support can relate and it's a mutual understanding and respect. Whereas it's like having a marriage counselor that's never been married. How are you
100%.
going to counsel, right?
Well, I mean, I've looked at like I think I remember looking at trauma counselors. I was looking on a website for trauma counselors or something, and I says mostly all women because I think men need men. To be honest, I've had a lot of women as my counselors, and some of them have been attractive, and I'm like, well, that's distracting. Like
Yeah.
we're addict, weirdo people, artists. Like, of course, like our thoughts. But I mean, looking on this website, and then all the dudes, there's like 5 guys available, and they're all just like wearing pink salmon colored shirts, no tattoos. I'm like, fuck, man. Like,
Yeah.
I want to talk
Yeah.
to a fucking gangster or some
Yeah.
metalhead. Yeah,
But
you
yeah, we
know.
need somebody like, we need somebody up there that actually gets it, because like I said, with Bonnie Henry and our whoever, like our healthcare system, we need somebody to make some
We just got
changes.
canceled.
Or like even yeah, even like you look at, I lived in an SRO for like a couple months. You got these shit fucking rat infested free buildings for addicts. Some of them, a lot of the houses downtown are vacant. Why are we not like fixing up some of those? If they're basically apartment buildings, and make those detox places like,
No, foreign money, dude. We gotta keep those places empty so that
yeah. Exactly. And that's what I said. It all comes down to a bottom line. It's like the
Yeah.
pharmaceutical company. They don't make money off of
oh,
healthy people. It's all a business model with everything, addiction, everything, drugs, illegal drugs. Like, it all comes down to the bottom line, and it's all a business plan of money. So how do
Hmm.
we push more product out?
and that would come down so because addiction and all this dysfunction, all these sores that we're having, like the downtown east side, the mental health crisis is a symptom of a broken fucking society. So essentially, like we need to help the kids before they become problematic. It's almost like you know what I mean. It's just sort of we need a utopian sort of idea,
Yeah.
which is unrealistic at this time. But you're right. It's I don't know. We need to start focusing on healing and proper. Yeah, the pharmaceutical industry is a joke. It is. It just seems like a repetitive cycle. So once these bureaucratic lunatics get all the money they fucking need, maybe we can get into some real healing and real help. Like that's got to end somehow, right? And I think it
Yeah.
does end with your book, with these conversations, the double-edged sword that is social media, and and my personal opinion is that keeping a positive attitude is that this can all change, and it is changing now because of this free market for open discourse, like as long as YouTube doesn't start kicking people off and everything else. But
Yeah, and just
Yeah,
more.
that's why I wanted to share my story too, because I'm like, listen, if we don't talk about it, nothing's going to change. And like, a lot of people are ashamed or embarrassed, or don't want to admit they have addiction in the family, or they are an addict. So by creating this dialogue of me sharing openly about what I've gone through and how to get help, I'm hoping that other people see that and realize there's nothing to be embarrassed about or ashamed about, and to get the help and therapy, and like, and also to show people, like we've talked about, don't white knuckle sobriety, or staying off substances and being sober is one part. You need the other part. You need the therapy. You need to fix the brokenness in you. Otherwise, you're going to relapse. You haven't eradicated that trauma response of flight or escape. Like, you still have the
right,
fuck it
right.
button, in my opinion. So I say to Michael, your fuck it button is still there. We got to get rid of it and replace it with different tools. Otherwise, it's still wiring that you have. That's why you need the therapy and the counseling, like, not just being sober.
Yeah, neuroplasticity. Like if anybody out there, like you're listening to this, like look up Andrew Huberman or Gabor Mate, Johan Hari, like or obviously if you go to treatment, like or get the help you need immediately if you're really bad. But I mean, neuroplasticity is real. Like it's like and it stays with you forever. And it's just rebuilding. Like it literally just comes down to, and this is not easy, but if it's like you've had a bad day, you're like, fuck, I want to use. Like that's when that call to that sponsor or a friend really comes in handy because they're going to talk to you and distract you, and then that urge to use will pass. Right
Yeah.
now, you've just built it. Now you're building a you're building neuroplasticity. Go for a run and just slowly build new. It's like
Yeah.
carving wood, but it is
Yeah.
hard and it does take time.
Yeah, rather
Yeah.
than the whole like the giving up mentality or being like it's gotten so bad, there's no way out. Like more stories and examples of people like, hey, these people have been to dark places and they got out of it. There's more
Yeah.
examples of that.
Yeah,
Of
and
just
Yeah.
relapses
it's
happen,
never
man.
it's never a situation where there's no way back. You
Yeah.
have to start.
Yeah, I hope to show that in my, like, when I met like my peer worker, like I said, it inspired me because it was tangible, physical proof in front of me that, and I hope to be that too, that I was as far down as a rabbit hole as you can get. Like, I overdosed 7 times. I felt hopeless, helpless, stuck, afraid, lost. That's why I called my book Finding My Lost Life, because I truly felt my life is lost. Like, I'm fucking never gonna get it back. Like, it's done. I'm screwed. I actually accepted the fact I was gonna die a junkie. That's how it was gonna happen. And so I hope by sharing and being that icon, that, or some sort of proof that you can get here too. I was once where you were, and now you can get to where I was. Like, it's really important. It was big for me when I was stuck. When I met someone physically that's like, dude, I used to live on the street and used to do all the things that you're doing, and I'm now here sober, so it's possible.
That's one of the questions we always ask on this. Like, when was the precipice, the moment it went, what was that like for you when you were like, okay, I'm done. I'm getting sober.
It was the last time in jail, honestly. Like, when you're downtown east side on drugs, you have no concept of time. It's just a time warp, No, I never knew the day, the time didn't matter. And when I'd get arrested, my mom would come in every time and see me, and like, I started to see the fine lines on her face, like she was aging and time was passing by. And then the last time I finally joined Bible studies and AA, and there was 50-year-old men, 40-year-old men, 70-year-old men with just no teeth, no family. And I'm like, dude, that's gonna be me. Like, there is only death or jail for the life I'm living. For the first couple of times being arrested, I had that mentality of, well, maybe if I do it this way this time, or if I only do this kind of fraud, or if I don't associate with that people. Like, I had those thoughts. Like, that's the addict mentality, to try to
Fucking A.
justify, right? And I struggled with that. But this last time, it sounds silly, but me and the last partner, there was only 3 during my addiction. We stopped doing, like, we kept getting arrested in and out, in and out, in and out, probably like 11 times. And I was so exhausted, and we're checking over my shoulder all the time. We actually stopped doing fraud and crime altogether. We lived off disability. We were smarter with we got dillies that we sold on the corner for fentanyl. And we got on the methadone train. It got delivered to we were at this SRO, both of us. We would stop once or twice, every week. Anyway, we were just smarter with our money, ironically, as drug addicts, but we stopped doing the big crimes. So when I got arrested, I really was unprepared. I was like, are you kidding me right now? Because you just know the next fucking 72 hours are going to be so shitty when you get arrested, like going to city cells, withdrawing, waiting for court, waiting to go driven to the jail, waiting to get processed, get back onto the unit, jail politics. It's just a fucking shit show, and it was exhausting. So this final time, I was so done. I was defeated with this cycle, and it kind of, when I saw those older men doing the same shit over and over and over again, I'm like, that's going to be me. My little brothers are graduating. I've missed all that. My mom's getting older. She's going to die, and if she dies and I'm not there, like, I've given everything for drugs and crime. How the fuck is that a fair trade? And that just,
Yeah.
That was the click moment,
Yeah.
eh? And
yeah.
and
That was your
well,
rock
thankfully
bottom, eh?
you have like your family as a support system around you, which
Yeah.
which is helpful, right? So they
Yeah.
were, on your side like through all of that in a way, or
Yeah, I protected them from a lot of, my mom, because he would, the second, like I said, they would threaten, like, there was contact, and and for the long, me and her, really, my mom's my best friend, so we would talk all the time, and I would call her devastated. When I was homeless, she would order Panago pizza to the nearest Vancouver Panago, and like, when I was on on the street and starving, and she'd order pizza and a bunch of food for me, and I'd go pick it up. She'd pay with a credit card over the phone. She was always really supportive. And then another moment, this final time in jail, I had 3 seizures coming through withdrawal. The third one was so bad that I fell and cracked my head open. I went to the hospital, and there was like this 7-year-old really nice woman in the same room as me and had like a 40-year-old son. And I had like a moment there too. I'm like, man, if my mom ever was hospitalized, I wouldn't even get a call. I would have no idea she's in jail. And that was another thing for me too. Like I was just so done.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I feel that. I feel that.
Well,
Plus, the things were getting scarier. I was, the people I was getting involved with on the streets, the scores that were going on, the death. Like during COVID, there was dead bodies just, and then when they decriminalized fentanyl downtown Vancouver, if there's an overdose, the police don't investigate. And like I was meeting hitmen that made their job very much easy. It just freaked me out. The shit that was going on, the
yeah.
corruption, everything I was seeing, I'm like, man, I'm not gonna get out of here. And that's why I said jail, luckily, was the forced sobriety, removal from my environment, from the people, and I finally took it seriously the last time.
And
It's
so I
good, man.
guess amongst final things I want to ask you, so what's on the horizon for you here in 2025? What's the future look
Uh,
like now?
Yeah, I've been on Glacier Media News. I did an interview with Lana Kelly. I did a exclusive author mini interview with Novus Entertainment. That's all like on my website. I just got contacted by the Langley Advance Times and CTV Morning News. So I'm just trying to get my story out there, my book promotion. I'm doing peer working right now. I have a job interview at Together We Can coming up here. Like I said, I think it would be cool to be, an interventionalist, maybe working more in the private sector, like athletes or people. Like I want to come into people's life when things are like they're on the cliff, when they need help before they fall over. I want to be implanted so that I can prevent them from their life unraveling and try to support them and coach them back over to the other side kind of thing. So yeah, I'm just like, my book is really good. There's tons of people from around the world that just did a book signing. I might do another one. I'm just trying to, I would love to see my book become a TV adaptation like on Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime, because there's such a big audience right now for the opiate crisis. The amount of people that contact me from around the world that have lost their kids to addiction, and my book has given them clarity or understanding, like that means the world to me. And I just want to keep spreading that message and be that cautionary tale, or just people that are getting sucked into that vortex, like just some almost like guidance. Like I remember thinking, man, like I said to some people, I'm doing that. Like when I was down there and I was, people were judging, I'm like, listen, I'm doing the best I can with what I fucking got. There's no fucking coach, there's no rule book of how to do crime alone, and being a drug addict on the street homeless. Like I'm just winging it, and I'm hoping that my story can kind of be like, listen, if you're going to go down this road, be aware of what gaslighting is, be aware of what people are capable of. Like, just be aware, like there's just so many messages in my book, then that's kind of what I want to keep doing.
Oh,
It's
that's great.
amazing, dude. I love you're inspiring me. I love it. I'm
Thank
inspired.
you.
It's like this is like what like this is such a good this is beautiful. This is what our Recovering Loudly podcast is all about too. Like and like it's cool for me because my addiction never took me to the streets. I got kicked out of my house and lost girlfriends and I mean my pattern was like losing girlfriends over and over, losing jobs over and over, losing cars over and over. Luckily for my mom though and my dad and friends, I never went they scared the shit out of me when I was young. Like one of my biggest fears was like juvenile hall. Like
Hmm.
I still have nightmares now about being in jail that I never went to. So
Yeah.
somehow, by the grace of God, I never went into the criminal aspect of addiction or got truly lived on the streets. But it still took my life away. I mean, there were about 10 years there that are gone. And I remember in 2015, like when 2015, I started getting sober, and kind of more recently in the last few years, I kind of popped my head up and I look around, I'm like, fuck, like where did everybody go? Like we were having parties and there's people, and I remember going to the Witch to watch the hockey games. Like where the fuck did I didn't really wasn't there for that time
Yeah.
when I was in my
Same.
addiction. Like we're
Yeah.
talking up at 9 a.m. go to the liquor store, drink straight vodka till I fucking passed out in the park or wherever, get up, go back, get some Fireball, and just repeat that for years. For a while there, that was years on end of that. Lost all my friends, everything. The only friend I had was heavy metal in headphones on the street, just walking and getting wasted by myself. I don't even remember a
Yeah.
lot of it, but it's just then you hear something like your story and you're like, whoa, like it's all so fascinating, you know.
Yeah, well, and each time something horrific happened, like you said, mine was fentanyl. I could smoke my pipe and poof, it was gone. You know, anything that was happening, it was my best friend. I trauma bonded with fentanyl. And so that's why it's imperative coming out of that. Like I needed to figure out, the writing process was actually really I thought it would be destructive, but it was really therapeutic. You know, my sister is a healer, and it was her that while I was in jail, she's like, why don't you just write your story chronologically? And it actually started with when I did the steps in jail, I had to write amends to my family. So I wrote them a 32-page amends letter, front and back. And it was like all the things that have gone unsaid because they had no idea. They were just waiting to hear that their brother was dead or their son was dead. Like I shielded them from everything. They saw me maybe twice during the 7 years, and came here and I was a skeleton. I was 98 pounds. There's photos on my website in the back of my book showing when I was homeless and how little I was. But I shielded them from a lot of it. Like now that they've all read my book, they're like, holy fuck! Like now we get why it's so much bigger than, well, it's just a choice. Or you choose to do drugs. Why they're just lazy? Why don't they just stop doing drugs? Like I'm like, okay, well, why don't you take a ride with me and find me in the pages and then see what you think after? It's not that simple. It's multi-layered sobriety and
And
getting off drugs.
they understand that a little more now, I would assume.
Yeah, oh yeah, 100%. Like I said, I didn't write it for pity's sake or victimization. I hate that term. I'm not a victim. I don't like that mentality. It was simply to obviously ask for their forgiveness and understanding. And then through that amends letter, I started writing my entire journey chronologically. I wrote 70% of it from behind bars. And that was really therapeutic for me. And then I had two editors, and it was published in November.
Nice. And
Wow.
we'll make sure to include all the links and everything to your book,
Cool,
Amazon,
thank you.
and other.
Jay, do you have any more questions?
This has been a great discussion. Honestly,
This is
I'm
really good.
really glad to have had you on, and maybe down the road we'll catch up
Oh
with
yeah.
you and
We're gonna keep
see how
grinding. Like
things
I'll
are
be honest,
going.
I'll say this right now, man. This conversation, we've had some good guests. I got goosebumps right now, and this one I think has sort of calcified my ambition to like
There you
really
go.
start bringing because like I procrastinate quite a bit. There's a lot of things I procrastinate, and I got these great ideas. ADHD is a blessing and a curse. Same with addiction, and
100%.
this has definitely like really inspired me to like really hold space for this type of conversation and really push it forward. So like I just want you to tell us if there's anybody out there struggling right now on fentanyl addiction, fentanyl, alcohol, cocaine, crack. If someone just hears this passing by, what's a what's something you would tell that person?
I would tell them that, I would say, man, when there's a will, there's a way. That's the biggest thing. If you have a will, you'll find a way. And that was my biggest thing. And I'd want them to know that they can get out of this thing alive. It's a choice. It is a choice, and hopefully, with more people like us and my book, and people that are actually going to be hands-on, a part of the solution to helping these people navigate recovery and sobriety. I'd want them to know that there's options out there. There's people out there that will help you, that have been there, that have done that, and it's possible. Recovery is possible, honestly.
Fucking
Recovery is
A.
possible, and you
And
can learn to love yourself for sure.
and
Thank you, Jeremy, so
yes,
much, man. This has been one of the best conversations we've had so far here. Again, what's the title of your book, and where can everybody look you up?
It's Finding My Lost Life, The Fall to Addiction and Rise to Recovery. It's on Amazon, Barnes& and Noble's, Chapters, Kobo, a bunch of other places, Google Play Store. You can go to my website. It's jeremycross.ca. And all the direct book links are there, as well as a contact me section. And you can also book on the Calendly app on my website if you need a peer worker or just some advice or some support.
fucking A.
That
And with
goes.
that,